It was an act that shook the very foundations of Bollywood. A well-known director who had worked with multiple A-list stars had committed a horrific crime. He had brutally killed his wife and daughter, attempted to kill his son, and then he took his own life. Neighbors and friends of the family told journalists that the tragedy had taken them by surprise because Brij Sadanah had appeared to be a very loving husband and father. However, despite his public image of being a very happy family man, there was a quiet rage building within Brijsadanah. Although no one could have predicted the tragedy that occurred on October 21st, 1990, there had been warning signs of the darkness that lay ahead. Today, we're going to delve into the tragic death of actress Sayeeda Khan. Sayeeda Khan was the daughter of Anvari Begum, a former actress who had appeared in a few small-budget films in the 1950s. Sayeeda Khan had a brother named Munawwar and a much younger sister named Shagufta, who was the little girl that her mother had adopted. One night, Sayeeda Khan met director H.S. Ravel at a party. The director, struck by her beauty and elegant demeanor, asked Sayeeda if she would like to act in films. She immediately said yes. Soon after, Sayeeda Khan moved to Mumbai from Calcutta. H.S. Ravel, true to his word, immediately signed the young actress for his film, 1961's Kanch Ki Guriya. Sayeeda Khan's career started with a bang, and she signed several big-budget films with actors such as Pradeep Kumar, Manoj Kumar, and Kishore Kumar. Unfortunately, the films did not perform well at the box office, and she never reached the same level of stardom as her contemporaries, Saira Bano and Sadhana. Offers from top directors for roles soon began to dry up, and Sayeeda Khan began to work in B and C-list films such as Char Dervish and Main Shadi Karni Chala. One fateful night, Sayeeda Khan met director Brijsadanah at a social event. Brijsadanah, also known as Brij Mohan, was a filmmaker who had directed numerous box office hits in the 1960s and 70s. Brij made his directorial debut with the 1959 film Nayi Rahein, starring Geeta Bali and Ashok Kumar. In 1963, he produced and directed the film Ustado Ke Ustad. The film's critical and commercial success cemented Brij's position as a top director in Hindi cinema. Brij worked with some of the most prominent names in Hindi cinema at the time, such as Dharmender, Vinod Khanna, Rajesh Khanna, Hema Malini, Zeenat Aman, and Helen. Although he was a director, Brij made cameo appearances in the films Do Bhai, Vachan, and Night in London. Brijsadanah was instantly smitten with Sayeeda Khan upon meeting her. Despite belonging to different religions, Brijsadanah asked Sayeeda Khan to marry him. Brij was aware that there would be family opposition to their union, but he was determined to overcome all obstacles. Although Sayeeda Khan reciprocated his feelings, she was hesitant to agree to Brijsadanah's marriage proposal. Sayeeda Khan was the sole breadwinner in her family. Her mother and her sister were financially dependent on Sayeeda, as Sayeeda's brother had long abandoned his family responsibilities. Sayeeda Khan told Brij that she would marry him only on one condition, that he agreed to help financially support her family after they were married. Brij immediately agreed. The couple married and had 2 children, Namrata and Kamal. There were rumors floating around in Bollywood at the time concerning Sayeeda Khan and her much younger sister Shagufta, the little girl that Anvari Begum had adopted. After all, Shagufta was only 2 years old when Sayeeda married Brij. People wondered at the age difference between the 2 siblings, and they questioned why Anvari Begum would adopt a child at that stage in her life, especially since she had no source of income. There was also a strong physical resemblance between Sayeeda and Shagufta, leading many in the film industry to believe that Shagufta was really the illegitimate daughter of Sayeeda Khan. It was speculated that Anvari Begum's story about adoption was a ruse to save Saeeda and the family's reputation. Shagufta would later state in an interview with Filmfare magazine, "The strongest rumor was that I was my sister Sayeeda Khan's love child. Often, when people from the industry spotted me with Anvari Begum, they'd say, 'You're going out with your grandmother?' This left me perplexed." Brijsadanah became aware of the rumors shortly after marrying Sayeeda Khan, and even though his wife assured him that the gossip was false, he began to have doubts. The gossip, whispers, and innuendos from those around him regarding his wife and her sister eventually began to eat away at Brij, and he began to consume alcohol on a regular basis. The topic of financially supporting Saeeda's mother and sister became a major issue for the couple. Brijsadanah began to resent having to support his wife's family. The topic would ignite arguments between the couple. Saeeda Khan refused to abandon her family. Her mother was old and her sister was just a child. If Saeeda didn't provide for them, her family would be left destitute. Shagufta stated in an interview, "Brid Saab hated me because he was not sure who I was, also because we were financially dependent on him." One day in the late 1970s, Sayeeda Khan and Brijsadanah had a particularly bad fight. Sayeeda Khan grabbed her children, Kamal and Namrata, and took them with her to Ocean Apartments, the Sadhana's Carter Road flat. Brijsadanah followed his wife and children and demanded that they allow him to enter the apartment. Sayeeda Khan refused to let him in. Brij was drunk and asked the watchman for a ladder so that he could climb the balcony and enter the apartment that way. When the watchman refused, Brij removed a gun from his coat pocket and fired a shot into the air. Although Sayeeda Khan was terrified, she stood her ground and told him to return when he was sober. Sayeeda Khan and Nergis Dutt were close friends, and upon hearing about her friend's ordeal, Nergis began to fear for her friend's safety. Being married to an actor-turned-politician, Sunil Dutt, Nergis was able to use her political clout to get the gun confiscated by the police. In the 1980s, several of Brijsadanah's films, such as Unche Log, Bombay 405 Miles, and Magrur, flopped at the box office. Simultaneously, many of the people in Bollywood who once surrounded Brij when he was successful began to distance themselves. Financial losses, combined with feelings of abandonment by the film fraternity and the continuing doubts about his wife, led Brijsadanah into alcoholism. Many people who knew Brij said that he turned into a completely different person when he drank. It was like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario. Although Brijsadanah's last two films, Takdeer and Mardon Wali Baat, were successful, Brij continued to drink. In the mid-1980s, at the height of the Punjab insurgency, Brijsadanah requested to have his gun, a .32 Smith & Wesson, returned to him. Brij claimed to need the gun for personal protection against the possibility of extortion attempts from terrorists. Seeing the request as being legitimate and reasonable, the police returned the gun to Brijsadanah. It was an act of clemency that would prove to be deadly. October 21st, 1990. It was Kamal Sadhana's 20th birthday. Saeeda and Brij had already had an altercation that morning. In addition to taunting his wife about her sister, Brij did not approve of his daughter's fiancé, Abis Rizvi. Although the young man was the son of a real estate tycoon and came from money, Brij had issues with the family being Muslim. Alcohol made Brij paranoid. He accused his wife of deliberately getting their daughter engaged to someone of a different faith. While inebriated, Brijsadanah would conveniently forget that Abis was one of his son's best friends and that it was a love marriage, with Namrata wanting to marry Abis Rizvi. Becoming used to the daily arguments, Kamal left for his birthday celebration and returned home at around midnight with his friends. The boys were hanging around in Kamal's room on the first floor of the bungalow when they heard gunshots. The boys immediately ran downstairs and were horrified to see Kamal's mother, Sayeeda Khan, and sister Namrata lying on the floor, drenched in blood. Before Kamal could react and comprehend what was happening, Brij, consumed by alcohol and anger, aimed his gun at his son and fired. The bullet ripped through the side of Sadhana's neck. Brij then fired another shot. Kamal's friend Harry instinctively stretched his arms out in order to try to protect his friend. The bullet, which was meant for Kamal, struck Harry's wrist. Believing that he had succeeded in killing his entire family, a seemingly numb Brij staggered into his bedroom and closed the door. Sadhana's friends rushed the victims to Baba Hospital. Saeeda and Namrata were declared DOA, dead on arrival. Speaking of that night to the Mumbai Mirror, Sadhana recalled, Baba Hospital did not have operating facilities for a bullet wound. I had to be driven all the way to Hinduja Hospital at Mahim. I remember going into the operation theater and saying that I was worried for my dad. It didn't seem right, leaving Dad in his room all by himself in that state of mind. After surgery, Kamal was given a sedative. Back home, Brijsadanah, realizing the gravity of his actions, placed the nozzle of the revolver in his mouth and pulled the trigger, killing himself instantly. Upon waking up and seeing that there were no family members by his bedside, Sadhana insisted that he be discharged from the hospital. By the time Kamal arrived at the family bungalow, it was overflowing with people from the film industry, the media, and the police. Sayeeda Khan's sister Shagufta spoke of that night in an interview. She said, when the tragedy happened, the maid came rushing home to inform us. She said that Saeeda Appa lay bleeding on her lap as they drove to the hospital. The maid kept repeating, Namrata's dead, I don't want to live. Following Sayeeda Khan's death, life became very difficult for Sayeeda Khan's mother and sister. Shagufta, speaking of those times, said, I saw my mother, Anvari Begum, selling her bangles and later our utensils for us to survive. It was heartbreaking. Since I had trained in Kathak, I took to dancing in private parties when I was 12. These parties, held in shady flats, had the atmosphere of a brothel where respectable men came with their mistresses and prostitutes. They were high-ranking officers, cops, ministers, income tax officers. I have these vivid images of picking the notes and collecting them in my choli. I'd be exhilarated with the money. It was more like giving back to the family and taking care of my mother. I did this until I was 17. With no formal education or technical skills, Shagufta had to resort to becoming an escort in order to feed herself and her mother. In the interview, Shagufta further revealed, my mother knew I'd taken to prostitution. I'd become the man of the house, but it gave me happiness that I helped my mother get off the bus and travel in a taxi. Anvari Begum died in 1999. About the entire tragedy, Sadhana said to the Mumbai Mirror, I found no answers that could give this incident closure. There was a certain person about whom my mother and dad fought about. I'm not going to tell you that person's name, for it's not fair to malign anyone. Unfortunately, tragedy does seem to follow Sadhana. While filming the movie Rang, Kamal's co-star Divya Bharti fell from her apartment's balcony and died at the young age of 19. Sadhana's best friend, Abiz Rizvi, his late sister's fiancé, was killed in the 2017 Istanbul terrorist attacks. He was 48 years old. In January 2001, Sadhana married makeup artist Lisa John, with whom he has 2 children. In an interview in 2015, he said, I have a loving wife and 2 gorgeous kids. I'm raising a wonderful family. I always tell everyone that my biggest triumph is my family. In 2021, the media reported that Sadhana and his wife were divorcing. When asked if she believed that Sayeeda Khan was her mother, Shagufta replied, I was attached to her as a sister. I didn't see her as a mother figure. Mother wala roop to maine nahi dekha. But yes, the way she used to stand for me, cry for me, fight for me, was a little different from that of a sister. Once my mother, Anvari Begum, put it cleverly, if anyone asks you, is Saeeda Khan your mother, say yes. On being told this, I went into flashback about Saeeda Appa's affection towards me and tried putting the pieces together. On her equation with Kamal Sadhana, Shagufta has said, my relationship with Kamal has been good. He's been generous and responsible. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for future episodes, leave me a comment.